brings us to administrative items, number 8 on the agenda. The first is about the fire station improvements. Maurice, it looks like you have a report to give.
Complex one. Yeah, this is just because it is. All right, Mayor Atkin, members of the City Council. This item is for the award of the Fire Station Improvements Project. This is a project that was approved, the City Council approved the plans and specs back in July of this year. We went out to bid in September after the building department finished their plan review, and we had a chance to really put the bid package together. And we publicly bid the project. We opened up bids on October 22nd. Before that time, we issued a addendum to the contract documents so that we could take care of any of the questions that were raised by the bidders. We had a lot of interest in this project. We had 11 bids that we received on the project, which is great. Our engineer's estimate was about $1.2 million for the work. The bids came in right on target. We're very happy with that. But what was typically a routine 2-page staff report to award a construction contract on a consent calendar became a very complex 11-page staff report with 12 attachments because we received some discrepancies, or we received a couple protests in the bid. And I'll move on. So we received 11 bids, as I stated. The first bid we received was from a company called SLM Development. It was for $1.14 million. Unfortunately, they didn't sign their addendum to the bid document, so they were $100,000 lower than the next bidder up. But we anticipate, since they didn't see the addendum, they probably saw some things that they missed in their bid, and so the protocol is to reject a bid that doesn't include a signed addendum with the bid. The second bid was received from B-Side Incorporated here in West Oakland. And it appeared to us to be a good bid, $1.245 million. We reviewed the document, but unfortunately, due to an administrative error, which we've corrected since and we won't repeat again, it was posted before we noticed that the non-collusion affidavit wasn't signed. And so soon thereafter, we received a bid protest from the third bidder, which was $3,000 higher, protesting the bid because that statement was not signed with the bid when it was turned in. So soon thereafter, we posted revised results, which stated Pacific Mountain Contractors is the apparent, or is the lowest responsive bid that we received. With that, we received a letter from protesting our decision from B-Side, claiming that they in fact had signed the non-collusion affidavit, but they made a clerical error and didn't submit it with the document. And they also claimed that they did, but because the notary statement was in the bid document. And so as we went and we reviewed the information, we did find a notary, but we did not see the non-collusion affidavit. Now, a non-collusion affidavit is something you need to turn in so that you can assure the public that you didn't do any collusion while preparing your bid. So it's very important that that's turned in. And by state law, well, let me go on. The protest that we received on our decision stated that the city could waive the irregularity by saying that contract law allows us to waive the irregularity. But we feel that given the irregularity, we want to make sure that the document is included in order to proceed with the work. So we've feel that our decision to move with Pacific Mountain Contractors is the correct way to proceed with the work. So there's a number of steps we need to do to move forward with construction, and they're highlighted here below. This thing's really touchy today. So what we need to do in order to move forward with construction is we need to reject the first apparent low bid because they didn't sign the addendum. And then we need to reject the second low bid because they didn't submit the non-collusion affidavit form signed. And then we need to, and then there was another letter received from B-side, which they requested that we hold what they wanted us to hold a responsibility hearing, which essentially is a hearing that we would hold if we were basing our decision on the fact that they weren't a responsible contractor, but that really isn't the case. They're probably a responsible contractor. We've never worked with them, but they didn't sign the form. They didn't sign the non-collusion affidavit form. So we were denying a request to do that hearing. They can speak here today if they're here to speak on it, but we feel that there's no reason to have this responsibility hearing. The other thing we need to do when we award the contract is we need to deny the bid protest filed by B-side. They also filed a protest against Pacific Mountain Contractors bid. Turns out they turned the protest in too late. They have 5 days from the time we posted on the internet, on the website, as to who our decision is for. They had 5 days to file that protest, and they turned in their protest after the fact. So we are recommending that we don't even consider this protest. So that would be another thing you'd need to do is deny the bid protest received by B-side or filed by B-side. And then then as part of their protest, they were saying that there was an irregularity in the non-collusion affidavit form that we actually had received signed by Pacific Mountain Contractors. That form needed to be updated by state law, but it was a form that the city provided. And so since we caused the irregularity, we don't think that it's a true statement to say that a reason to reject Pacific Mountain Contractors bid, because we provided the form to them. It wasn't something that they did on their own. And so the last thing we would ask the city council to do would be to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Pacific Mountain Contracts in the amount of $1.24780 to move forward with the contract. So assuming you move forward with that, and we're going to move forward with the construction, I'd like to talk about the clock as part of the project. So maybe you want to discuss this part of the project first and make a direction, and then we can go back to the clock design as part of the work.
Okay, hang on. I'll just, at this point, I'll take any public comment if anybody wants to talk about this agenda item. Okay. All right. Talk about the clock.
Okay, I'll talk about the clock. So when the city council approved the plans and specs, they didn't really give clear direction on what we want to do on the clock for the design. We had a preferred design that was suggested by the architect, but the council at the time wanted a clock that was lit and something that we could read the numbers with a little bit better. So we actually found a clock arm mechanism that would be backlit with LED lights that would fit in the clock design that was recommended by the architect. So this is the recommended design by our architect. It could have LED lights on the back of the arms only, not on the numbers, so it won't be too bright. And it would be fonts here as shown that could match the brass lettering that's on the building. Because the building has lettering that talks about Alameda County Fire Station 34. So this matches it. If you wanted more visible fonts, we could darken it up. Either of these options are included with the bids we received, but it'd be at your discretion as to what you'd like to see out there. So if you give us direction on what you'd like to see, we could.
All right, well, council members, do you want to weigh in on the darker numbers or the brassier ones? So we'll just go down the line here.
Okay, this is an entertaining discussion here. Being a visual artist, that we get to have aesthetic choices up here on the council. I go for the brass.
I support that. My question is, what about the maintenance of this thing?
This will be maintained from the outside if we ever have to maintain it, whereas the previous version had to be maintained from the inside of the tower and we couldn't get access to it.
When you say maintained from the outside, do you mean it would be maintained with the fire ladder truck going?
Get a
up?
ladder up there to climb up a ladder to get to it. That would be the way to do it. It's not going to require a lot of maintenance. It'll be a new mechanism, a heavier duty than the old one. But the older one was not very strong. It didn't work after about a year, and we couldn't get up there to maintain it because there was no access. So,
It's going to come with any kind of guarantee that it'll work for 5 years?
well, we have a 1-year guarantee on the workmanship, and I don't know what the guarantee is for that mechanism, but I can take a look at it.
There's nothing worse than a clock that has the wrong time on it.
Does, Maurice, does the brass tarnish over time?
I suspect it could. I suspect unless there's a sealer put on top of it.
So I might be a minority here, but I actually would prefer darker coloring so that it's more visible and where we don't have to deal with tarnish as a maintenance cost.
Well, yes, unless you like the look of the patina on the tarnish and it maybe becomes more visible. It's subjective, whatever you'd like to do.
I would move the brass and move ahead with this thing. We've been talking about this darn clock for 10 years. I'm sick of it. Let's move ahead with the brass.
I'm fine with the brass.
That's a
All
motion.
right, so that's, a majority here want the brass, so you have direction there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we have to take action here on the resolution. Is there motion on the resolution?
Mayor,
I move,
public comment, please.
I asked
we
for
had
that
public
already.
comment.
I think there's another,
Oh, okay, come on up, Mr. Carpio.
my apologies.
I have to make a comment on, from material of engineering point of view, the brass corrode. It's an alloy of steel and zinc. It's not bronze, which is copper and tin. So I would move that the clock be made out of stainless steel. The hospital grade 316, it stays shiny, rain or shine, and it doesn't deform with the heat. And not only that, but the stainless steel does not have any interference with any communication. For instance, if the antenna is around the tower, then we will not have any interference that we would have with a brass assembly. So I would like, if you agree, that perhaps we could make some change and that the cost of stainless steel at the price of scrap is a couple of dollars a pound, and stainless steel is like platinum and gold, doesn't get old. So you can get stainless steel very cheap, much cheaper than brass. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I move both resolutions.
I second.
Thank you.
I have one question, and
Yes.
this is on 172, when we talk about the revision to the non-collusion form, that the unrevised one that then got used, and we talked about kind of cleaning up the administrative process for receiving the bids and making sure everything's checked off. Has this document, I'm assuming, has now been revised, and we're not going to have something like this again? Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, so there was a motion and a second. Davis and Donahue. Anybody opposed? Okay with that? All 5 members of the council approve this. That takes us to